School Board. I'd like to call the meeting to order and start with the Pledge of Allegiance.
It's to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, thank you. I did want to mention before we start tonight, our fifth board member, Jeff, is excused. He's traveling this week. Any members of the public for public comment? Seeing none, we will close public comment at 5:17. Public correspondence, so I did want to mention we received a nice long email from a former board member about Policy JJIB, which I think everyone on the board received, so just wanted to note that. Did anybody else receive any public correspondence? Oh. Todd, anything to the administration? All righty. Board comments and committee updates. I'll again just start with a shameless plug. The Charter Commission, there is a survey out now. If you're on any of the town mailing lists, or if you follow any of the town social media pages, if you haven't seen it already, you'll probably see it shortly, but the Charter Commission requests that everyone, or as many town residents as possible, take some time and fill that out. Shouldn't take more than about 5 minutes, and it will help the commission figure out ways that town government can serve people better, so thank you. Other committee updates?
The higher educator negotiations had started, and we had our first negotiation session earlier this week, and I think both sides are excited to have another successful negotiation for another contract. So it's going well.
All right. Thank you, Lonnie and Kathy, for spearheading that from the board side. Todd, your team, for leading that. Any board comments?
I will say, I had briefly talked with Todd a while back about the NHSBA meeting in October that I'm a delegate for, and the call for resolutions is to be by August 1st. It is my understanding that in the past, no resolutions that we have made, but that would be something that if we wanted to, that we would need.
Okay. All right. Moving on then to the superintendent's report.
I actually got quite a bit tonight. I did want to start by just talking about there's an awful lot of state law changes that are coming down the pike. One in particular, I spent some time with Andy Corbin and the junior senior high school team, is it's being called the bell-to-bell cell phone ban. That's what the law is called, and so obviously we are looking at it to obviously bring ourselves in line with state law. One of the pieces of it, which I'll be looking for some direction from the board in the coming weeks, the law requires us to adopt a policy, which, by the way, we already have a policy, I think, that is in line with what the law requires, but it does require some collaborative efforts to reach out to the community and take input. So my thought is I have the junior senior high team, which is really where cell phones are probably most likely the issue, taking a look at it in terms of internal practice and so forth. But I'd recommend that the policy committee look at it next month and make some recommendations to the board. There isn't like a definitive timeline by which you have to have it in place, but we definitely need to make sure we're fully in compliance with that. So I just want to put that on your radar as something to think about. It might actually, one of your board goals is more community engagement. It might be an opportunity to have a community forum around how would parents and community members like to see this new law implemented. So anyway, just put that out for you. A couple of other just laws that are going to affect. In fact, Kathy and I were talking earlier today. You know, the EFA expansion has gone into effect as of, I guess, yesterday or today. They had about 11,000 applications for that. They capped it at 10,000, so they clearly are going to have the maximum number, which also means that next year they'll be able to increase the number. But exactly what impact that will have on us locally is still to be determined. The state does report to us how many EFAs are connected to us, and last year it was 12. I don't know how many it's going to be for this upcoming year. Another bill, which I think our policies are pretty solid, but there was a bill called Parents' Bill of Rights that was passed. For the most part, it didn't incorporate anything new other than to put it in one place. So, you know, the regulations around parents' rights to know things that go on within their child's education, the ability to opt out of particular curriculum topics, all those things already exist, but I just want to acknowledge it, and that will be a topic of discussion with staff in the fall as we kind of talk about what that means to how we conduct ourselves as professionals. I want to just mention this one. I've talked to you before. In fact, I signed on to an op-ed that was in the newspaper last month on open enrollment. It does not look like open enrollment is going to be a thing for this upcoming year. Basically what has happened is both houses have passed different versions of it, and it's up to the conference committee to take some action on it, and they are not. And it's now kind of past the deadline for when that might take place. I do want to tell you that the New Hampshire School Administrators Association is forming a committee to kind of proactively take a look at how can we, because I think it's inevitable that the open enrollment concept is going to happen. It's just a question of how can we make it minimize the negative impact on schools. So the New Hampshire School Administrators Association is forming a group to do that. I volunteered to be a part of that to see if we can't come up with some guidance to provide as that happens. So just something to be aware of. Grant funding, I did want to bring you guys up to speed on kind of where we're at with grants funding. Usually when I talk about grant funding, I give you bad news, but tonight I have some good news to share as well. We did finally hear from the grant agency on that mental health grant that we had applied for. You may recall we had applied for it was a 5-year grant, $150,000 per year for 5 years. That had been held up because of the restrictions from the federal government on grants and so forth. We found out last week that they're giving us $275,000, and that's a nice number, but the restriction is the grant will not extend beyond December 31st of this year. So we need to spend $275,000 in the next 6 months. Normally, when you have a grant that is for something like mental health, they use terms like they supplement versus supplant. Basically, when you get a grant, you're supposed to add something that you didn't already have. Mm-hmm. You're not supposed to use it to pay for things that you already have. The grant agency or the grant administrator basically said to us, because the grant is going away, we think you should go ahead and try to propose using it for things that you're going to do anyway. So we are going to propose using the money for some mental health positions that we already have in play, which might buy us a little flexibility down the road. So I'll keep you posted on it. Otherwise, we would have to spend it on new programming, which would be very hard to do in 6 months. So anyway, just be aware of that. So it's good news, but it's a problem that we have to figure out how to solve.
And then once you start with new programming, you either fund it yourself or you, yeah.
So anything that happens after December 31, you have to continue. So if it involves staffing or curriculum, it's a matter of, I don't want to go on a spending frenzy and then find out next year we've just committed ourselves to $500,000 in additional costs. Yeah. So just something to be aware of. But I think based on what the grant administrator was saying, I think we're going to be able to find some creative things we can do that can buy us some flexibility. Even if we can't use the full $275,000, we can use some of it towards things that we were already doing. I will say Erica McNeil and the counseling department has been very proactive in starting to think ahead. And I think we have some programs that we went ahead to initiate that would have been part of the grant had we come in earlier. So I think they're going to be inclined to support us in that. So I feel pretty good about that. Other grant information is less positive, unfortunately. We did hear we heard from the commissioner through the U.S. Department of Ed that we will not be receiving any Title II or IV grant money. Title II and IV, for those who don't know, is typically the sources that we use for professional development and our teacher mentor program. So what that means is that's about $65,000 that we had anticipated that we had been told we're not going to get. So going back to that $275,000, if we can creatively use that, hopefully we can offset some of that so we can continue to go forward with the PD that we need to do. Yes?
So on your remarks here, that 65 should be 65,000.
Oh, yes, yeah,
Okay.
it says $65. Yeah, $65. Yeah, you get $65,000. Yeah, we get about 48 from Title II and 17 from Title IV.
Okay, thank you.
And then we also did get our Title I allocation. They gave us a number earlier, and they gave us 40% of that number. And they've said, in October, we'll give you the rest of it. It's one of those things, I'll believe it when I see it, kind of a thing. And just to acknowledge, Title I is largely, we use it to pay for many of our interventionists. So there are 3 positions tied to that funding that we need, and I'm going to go forward with having, but just acknowledge that, fingers crossed, that they actually come through the other 60% later on. And then lastly, we're still waiting on our IDEA funds. I don't know why they're taking so long, because those are pretty solid from what I understand, but there's $311,000 that we've been promised through IDEA that as of now we haven't gotten, and normally we know we have those monies available by mid-June, so it's at least a month late. So fingers crossed that that money's going to come through shortly. And then lastly, I just wanted to mention a couple of things. I talked with Mike Mellon, Jana's husband, earlier in the week, and they have planned the celebration of life for Jana on August 23rd. It's in Chichester. There is a Facebook group for anybody. Her daughter Haley started it, so there's a Facebook group that has all the information there. But it's from noon to 4 o'clock on August 23rd at the Delvey Farm in Chichester. And on the Facebook page, there is a RSVP thing. And it's, from what Mike told me, it's going to be a very upbeat celebration of Jana's life, which is wonderful. And then the other celebration of life, just to be aware of, on Saturday, Gary Gott's wife Sarah's celebration of life is taking place in Portsmouth from 3 to 6 at the Jarvis Center. So if anybody is interested in that, that's there.
This Saturday.
Did you have a question, Gary?
I was just confirming it's this Saturday. That was all.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
I'm sorry.
Saturday. Yeah, it's this Saturday. This Saturday, 3 to 6, yep. And that's all I have.
All right, thank you. So moving on to discussion items.
Dan, before we
Yep.
do that, the superintendent report brought up something which I actually mentioned a little bit before. So one of our policies is reaching out to the community, as you stated. We talked about putting Lonnie in a dunk tank, maybe for the backyard bash.
I'll be back then.
But
I think
if
former chair.
no, I'm not sure. Yeah, we have to vote on that. But if it would be hard for us to come up with a survey to give out by that time. But if we did want to have representatives of the board there, we could ask for anecdotal thoughts on cell phones in the classroom or something.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. Gary's talking about, I'm sorry, which event I'm getting?
There's the
mixed up.
backyard bash
The
is coming up
backyard
on
bash.
August
Yeah,
1st.
it's
I'm not
coming
sure
up.
the time, but yeah.
Okay. Yeah, we aren't going to have another meeting between now and
No.
then, so we do need to, I'll take the initiative to at least figure out how to get a table set up and, see if we can come up with, it may not be as glorious as Lonnie in a dunk tank, but we'll try to come up with some inducement for the kids to drag their parents closer to us. And
Well, even if we just want to walk around and just go up to people and say, hey, on the school board, there's a law in effect. We're trying to solicit feedback.
somebody should dress up like a cell phone.
Even a sign that says like, how do you feel about cell phones? You know, question mark, anything to get them,
Right.
ram them in.
Well, I mean, probably the,
You get a lollipop,
right,
There you go.
answer a question.
right. Good first step. I'll just email Amy Gigante and see, you know, if they'd
I
have,
should be available,
yeah.
as far as I know.
Okay, thanks for pointing that out.
Thanks.
All right, first discussion item this evening is a review of the SAU safety plans, timely and,
Sure. And I apologize, I put a memo in this afternoon because I was just finishing up some of the internal meetings at the office this morning, so I wanted to make sure I could capture everything before I gave it to you. But I did want to just follow up because obviously anytime we have a traumatic incident like we had on June 12th in our office, where obviously we had a medical emergency that we had to respond to, it causes us to reflect and make some adjustments. And I just wanted to kind of give the board an update on kind of how we processed through it and some of the actions we've taken to address the issues that had come up. First and foremost, when first responders like police and fire have a traumatic incident, there's a whole official process that they go through where they literally have a counselor come in and do a debrief and help them process it. When something happens in a public setting, you don't necessarily have that. But we were able to get a counselor from Seacoast Mental Health to come over and spend some time with the staff kind of processing through some of the emotions and thoughts that people had and sort of help us sort of craft some directions to how to move forward and how to make sense of that. So that did go very well, and the staff were very positive about that. We also have made clear to everybody that our employee assistance program has access to individual counseling if anybody feels they need that. And so that has been made available to people, and some are taking advantage of it, and obviously that's a personal choice. But I wanted to be clear that that was one of the first things we thought of, because when you deal with something traumatic, you want to make sure that happens. Once we kind of started that process, then we began to do some review of our various systems. One of the things that I will tell you that we learned, and actually people in the community might be interested in this, the way 911 works is when you make a call, it goes to Concord, and that's where the original call comes in. There's a priority order that the response comes in, and then it pings back to a local dispatch center, in our case, in the Newmarket police station. But there's a couple of minutes from the time the call goes in until the response is actually directed, and the local emergency responders know what the emergency is enough to be able to say, okay, this is what we're deploying to that spot. Further, if you are calling on a cell phone and you happen to have an out-of-area code line, it's possible that your call could be directed to a dispatch someplace else. Like if you have a Massachusetts number, it could go there first. It eventually comes back to where, but it pings and then eventually comes back. What we learned in our situation was that delay of 2 or 3 minutes was pretty significant and important. So in working with Chief Jordan, he encouraged us to, whenever you have an emergency, to simultaneously, if you have somebody calling 911, but simultaneously also have someone call the local number, because if you want to guarantee that local people are 100% immediately aware, that is an important thing to do. So we have established in our office protocols, so all of our phones are programmed with local police, as well as obviously 911 is everybody is trained at that. But that simple issue was significant in this case, so I just wanted to say that. The other component I just would say, and this is something that I would say for just the community at large, and frankly the greater, frankly I saw an article in the New York Times talking about a similar issue in New York. Emergency medical, EMTs or EMS, are not considered first responders. They're considered like, so you have police and fire, but your ambulance services are not in the same category. So when you have, like, there's a real shortage of EMTs because they're not necessarily under the same contracts, they're not necessarily treated with the same level of respect. In Newmarket in particular, there's only 2 EMTs that work for the town. And when you have an emergency and they are called somewhere, if a second emergency comes in, there's nobody to respond. So and so what ends up happening is you call somebody from an adjoining town. And in our case, it was Stratham. So again, further delaying the ability of someone to get there. So understanding all that was very important for us to make sure that we were connected with the right people. So we spent a lot of time looking at that, and to their credit, both Chief Jordan and Mulaski are very aware of it. And they obviously want everything to happen as smoothly as possible, but I think it's valuable for people to realize that's how the system works. And bottom line is there just aren't enough EMTs and ambulance people out there, and there are, thankfully we're in the seacoast where I think there are more of them, but you go to more rural parts of the state, it's going to be 20, 25 minutes before an ambulance can respond to you, which is very concerning. We also spend a lot of time talking about our internal communication systems. We have internal walkie-talkies, we have panic alarms, things like that we have talked about and reinstituted. We have also since, we have purchased 2 AEDs for the school district, one that's going to be deployed on the 3rd floor at the town hall. It's important to note there was one on the 2nd floor, but again, having one immediately available was particularly useful. And the second one we're actually deploying with the athletic program. We'll travel with our athletic trainer, so it's always with the athletic trainer. Prior to this, they would borrow one from the nurse's office, but this is specifically deployed to our athletic program. So those have been purchased and are being deployed. And then
just for clarity, so there are 2 in the school buildings. We're already, correct?
Correct. There's 1 in each nurse's office, plus there's 3 others in each building.
Oh, okay.
So there's multiple. So
right.
I think there's no question that our 2 schools are very well equipped with that. I think it's more just we realized simultaneously that we needed to do something for athletic programs because they're often out in a field somewhere and having to run inside. That delay could be a problem. And we realized that we needed one on our floor in the town hall because it did make a difference. And then lastly, we have reviewed all of our staff training needs. We are scheduling a CPR training for everybody in the SAU. It should be noted that our staffs are regularly CPR trained and so forth, but it hasn't been, to be honest, it hasn't been as high a priority at the SAU. We piggyback on the school plans, but I think we realize the importance of that. And we're also reviewing all of our safety protocols. There are a number of uniquenesses to being on the 3rd floor of a town building that you're not fully in control of, and how you manage individual emergencies is important. So anyway, all of that has taken place. I still wish the initial event that started it hadn't happened, but I feel like we've learned a lot from it and have taken some steps to make sure we're better prepared. Any questions?
Just thank you. I can't imagine how hard it must be to do these steps and just, rehash the memories. So I appreciate you not sweeping it under the rug and you all taking it very seriously and putting steps in place.
Yeah, one of the things we realized early on, we needed to do the trauma debrief first, so that when we revisited all these things, that people could have had an opportunity to talk about it before we did. So, to my staff's credit, they're definitely ready to start taking the active steps to improve things.
Any other questions on this part of it? All right. So next on the agenda, our extended second read on Policy JJIB, the extracurricular activities. In addition to the discussion that we had last time, we did receive some public correspondence about this, different points of view from people, and we had asked Todd to go back with his team and look at certain aspects of this that we discussed. How it aligns with the state rules, whether there's a role for credit recovery in any of this. So Todd had sent out a memo before this, if you want to
Yep.
quickly summarize what.
Yeah, so, I mean, we reviewed it with Athletic Director Hayes and Principal Corman. We feel the revisions that we put forward are the appropriate revisions, and so the proposed policy requires the passing of 5 classes in the preceding grading period. We feel that is appropriate. We reviewed a number of things as we looked at that. A big thing to keep in mind is that 2 years ago we did revise graduation policies, and so we are gradually working our way to a place where 24 credits is the amount required to graduate, and keeping people on target. 6 credits a year is what you need to do to stay on target. So we felt that was the 5 course level did allow for someone to have a down grading period but stay on target to graduate. Because ultimately that is our goal, is to get all of our kids to graduate. So that was one thing. We also took a look next year. There's going to be a new master schedule. There are seven class periods a day. Passing 5 means there is room in the schedule to retake something or do things to credit recovery to make that happen. We also spent quite a bit of time talking about the vision of a graduate. And so that when we asked the SALT kids to take a look at it, we asked them to take a look at it in light of that. And so we felt confident that that had been carefully considered. So clearly 5 courses gets people there. Really the big thing separate from the policy language that we talked about though was internal practices. And one of the things that we don't want to do is have policies that do not allow the school district to be supportive with kids when they are struggling. Because clearly, I think all of us know that there are lots of kids that their extracurricular activities are the thing that's motivating them, that's driving them. And a kid that's struggling in school, to take away the thing that they love is not what's going to be the recipe for encouraging success. So we are taking a look at creating pathways to allow people, in light of reviewing the NHIA minimum standards, looking at can we utilize credit recovery, particularly the window between spring and fall. You have a window of opportunity for credit recovery. Can we allow kids to recover credit and then get back on track and have some kind of a supportive mechanism in place to monitor them and provide support to allow them to stay in the activity they want to do, with the idea that they have to, get back on track. So that was something that I think Jamie, the AD Hayes, really embraced. And so we talked about particular students, and I don't want to get into anything specific, but reaching out to those families and starting to have a conversation about what can we do to build the bridge to keep kids in contact with their activities.
Great. Thank you for taking the time to do that. I think I generated a lot more conversation in the last meeting than I intended to, but I think it's an important issue, and I'm glad we've spent a little extra time doing that. I will say I've talked to someone else in the educational field, and they were pretty firm in stating that a lot of kids, the motivation to get their work done is the fact that they're be able to play sports if they get it done, and if they don't, that they may not be able to. So I think viewing the policy in that light gives me some comfort in that it is the right change to make. And
I think this is very proactive and very positive to have these practices in place so the kids know you're not out the door, We do understand there are extenuating circumstances, and if you're willing to work with us, we're willing to work with you, and vice versa.
Yep.
But it has to be a two-way street.
I don't even want to say at the very least, but it sparked, I think, really great conversation that I, for one, just not being in a position where it directly impacted me right at this moment, I wouldn't have thought of, and I have to assume that went for so many other people as well, to get that out there as something that people are talking about and people are concerned about. And I'm glad that it came up.
All right. Good with this one? Sorry, public comment was earlier. We don't have members of the public talk during the rest of the agenda. Apologies. Administrative severance.
Okay. So we had talked in non-public about Jana Mellon's situation, and I think the board wanted to have a public dialogue about the notion of administrative severance, specifically in the context of Jana. And so what I put together was just a proposal for this. And I think the reason the board wanted to make sure it was not just a Jana thing was once you do something, it's precedent setting, and to give you the opportunity to consider that. So just to kind of give a context, our teacher contract includes various provisions that involve severance when a person leaves. It includes the ability to cash in up to 40 sick days at the certified substitute rate of $125, meaning up to $5,000. And it also allows teachers, once they've gotten 15 or more years in the system, to get some severance for those days. So the way it works for teachers is when they reach 15 years, they get $600 for every year of service. When they reach 25, it goes up to $900 per year of service until they retire. In the administrative realm, we've never had anything like that. I did want to point out that 3 years ago, we did have one administrator retire, and there had been an agreement because that administrator had been employed as a teacher in the district prior to that to allow them to access all of the benefits. So we did pay out that. What I'm proposing for administrators moving forward is to allow administrators to have the similar provision of cashing out sick time the same way that teachers do. And because it is highly unusual for an administrator to be in one post for 15 or more years, I was proposing making the cutoffs 5 and 10 years. I included just a note in here. On average, in the Seacoast area, administrative positions, 3 years is the average length of time that most administrators spend in an administrative post. So 5 years is a fairly substantial length of time in one job. So when you reach 5, you would have $600 per year, and 10 or more years would be $900. In Jana's case, what that would mean is she would be eligible for, because she was with us for 5 years, and she had maxed out her sick time, so she would be eligible for an additional $8,000 beyond accrued vacation time. And it's important to note that by law, anybody with unused vacation time, when they leave, we have to pay them. So administrators would be eligible for unused vacation time, and then those two provisions I just described.
Discussion?
Thank you for bringing it up.
Yeah, we appreciate you thinking through it and giving us all the context that goes with it.
And I would point out, Jana and I had actually been having conversations about wanting to address it in a more of a collective bargaining kind of way with the board, and we just unfortunately hadn't gotten to that point.
All right, and sure. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Presently, there are no New Hampshire bills or laws that have been created this year that would impact any of that. I know that they had that fireman retirement.
Well, the changes to the New Hampshire retirement system for public school teachers have already gone into effect.
Okay.
So anybody who became vested in the system after 2011 is not eligible to have any of their severance factored into their pension calculation, but people who were vested before 2011 are, and that's true for teachers as well.
Okay.
So yes, it's highly variable depending on the individual. Most people today retiring are not able to use their severance as anything other than cash to sort of pay out their insurance for a year or two if that's what they need.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions? All right. Sure, the thing everyone's been waiting for, the electrical services contract recommendation.
Finally, yes.
Finally, the story is this false. I'm just going to cut right to the chase, because I know that's what people want to know. The recommendation is to go with Monarch Electrical Services. And I know what you're saying. And so, wait a minute, is that the lowest bid? And the answer is, it depends on how you look at it, but no, it is not the lowest bid. However, in reviewing with Dave Riley, the references for Monarch were exceptional. In fact, they already do the work for the Pines and multiple other schools. The second, the lowest bid is a brand new company that's untested and so forth. And so Dave felt, and in reviewing it with Sue Caswell, they felt that Monarch Electrical was the right one. And so they recommend that we go with them.
Yeah, the company name from the lowest bid sort of jumped off the page. Is this one person? Yeah, and no disrespect to anyone, it could be a large firm for all I know. So I noted that Monarch, at least one of their on-call rates looked fairly low compared to the others. Is that a type of service we feel like we would use more often than?
For the most part, it's on-call is what we use them for. It's hard to predict exactly how many expenses we're going to have within the electrical realm. I would point out Dave's team, some of his facilities techs do have some electrical background, so many of the basic things they're able to do themselves. So it's mostly on-call services. And I would point out, just going back to your comment about the other, one of the things, Martineau Electric was the company we had for a long time. They are no more. And actually, Wilson is being started by somebody who used to work there. And so it's a brand new startup, but again, untested. Maybe next time around they will be a proven entity, and maybe that's when we would go back and go with them.
All right, yeah, I always encourage the district to keep bidders in the mix. So, thank you. All right, so we have two generous donations one generous donation from NCEP to acknowledge tonight. They are donating for classroom furniture from the 8th grade, or for the 8th grade that was requested by, oh goodness, I apologize in advance. Zoe Swalje, thank you, Todd. Many apologies. That one was rough coming off the page. I'm sorry, I didn't have the dollar amount written down here.
$667.96.
Okay, so this is purely acknowledgement. We don't have to vote.
It's just.
Okay. Well, again,
Thank you.
Thank you very much to NCEP. We appreciate everything that they do for the school district. All right, moving along to action items. I'd accept a motion to approve our minutes from the June 26th meeting.
So moved.
Thank you, Gary. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Lonnie. Did anybody see anything that required editing or adjustment? Going once, going twice. All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So we are,
Did we have to approve the May meeting notes because there was no ending time put on that?
I thought we agreed that we were
Oh,
gonna
did we?
friendly amendment.
Yeah,
Okay.
we-
The adjustment.
that's right.
Okay.
Thank you for pointing it out. We voted on that subject to
Okay.
knowing that would be added. Lonnie, would you make a motion for the manifest for us?
All right. I move to approve the manifest in the amount of $3,158,167.72.
Thank you. Thank you, Gary. All those in favor? Aye. We are unanimous. Nomination of winter coaches. Todd, would you, these all seem to be familiar names for the most
Yeah,
part.
they
but-
are. It's just one of the things that we try to do is to get because particularly basketball coaches tend to run off-season workouts, and we want to make sure they're under contract before they really get too deep into it. We probably should have done it last meeting, but better late than never. So all the winter coaches we know are in front.
All right, and for anyone watching at home, I would like to point out that we are still looking for coaches for girls JV basketball, an assistant coach for indoor track, and the boys middle school basketball program. So if you are interested, please reach out to Athletic Director Hayes. I'd accept a motion to approve the nominations we have in front of us, though.
I so move.
Thank you, Kathy.
Second.
Thank you, Gary. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We're unanimous. Todd, would you speak briefly to the June 2025 uncollectible meal debt?
Yeah, this is an oversight on my part last meeting. I shared this with you at the last meeting. At the end of every year, we have to take action to write off uncollected meal debt. And so the $6,735.83 is uncollected meal debt. That does not mean we stop trying to collect on it. It just means we have to write it off at the end of the fiscal year. So we need officially to vote to do that.
All right, I'd accept a motion to accept the recommendation for the write-off of uncollectible meal debt.
So moved.
Thank you, Lonnie. Second.
I'll second it.
Thank you, Kathy. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We are unanimous. All right. I would accept a motion to approve the administrative severance package as presented earlier during discussion. Thank you,
Second.
Lonnie. Thank you, Gary. Any discussion before we vote? All those in favor? Aye. We are unanimous. I would accept a motion to approve Policy JJIB, the extracurricular activities policy as presented.
So moved.
Thank you, Gary. A second.
Second.
Thank you, Kathy. Any discussion before we vote? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We are unanimous. And lastly, I would accept a motion to approve the recommendation for the electrical services contract.
So moved.
Thank you, Gary. Second.
Second.
Thank you, Lonnie. Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. We are unanimous. All right, our next meeting will be here at the Junior Senior High School on August 7th at 5:15 p.m.
Is that in the cafeteria?
It says cafetorium.
Will not be, no. It's all meetings until it gets cooler will be here.
You know I'm sensitive.
Yes.
So-
And thank you for the clarification.
So it's August 7th, this school
Yep.
board meeting?
Yep.
And just a friendly reminder to anybody wanting to make public comment that that's the first item on the agenda.
Yeah, so
Thank you.
thank you. All right, I'd accept a motion to adjourn.
I so move.
Thank you, Kathy. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Lonnie. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We are adjourned.
Oh.
So.